Yeah,
I
sure.
don't know if Dan will be on the call or not, but why don't you just explain kind of what you wrote in the forum? I thought it was one of the best ideas I'd ever heard about what we should be doing, with mobile.
Yeah, so the idea is essentially Venmo for BitUSD. You guys can just look it up on Google, VENMO. I think it's a pretty popular app right now in the US, but it's US only, if I'm not mistaken. It's essentially, the idea is a mobile wallet, whereas if you want to send somebody BitUSD, you just type in their phone number or just select it from your contacts list on your phone. And if they don't have the wallet, which most likely they won't have the wallet up front, you just send them an SMS saying, hey, I want to send you 100 BitUSD. If you want to accept that, click this link and download the wallet. This is how Viber, WhatsApp, and all these other SMS-based systems have grown to such huge popularity. I think this would really help the system grow. And it would also solve the issue of how to register identities for people, because the funds needed to register the identities could just be cut out of the funds sent by your friends via the wallet.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Absolutely.
Could you explain the last part a little bit better? I didn't hear it so well.
You mean the connection to the phone number, or which part?
Yeah, the connection to the phone number as far as the identity. You're saying that is it essentially like, how would the process work would be a better way of saying it. Say you're going to send me this money, I'm going to like log in through this portal and create my account, or?
Well, you download the wallet, and then you have the funds on there because you're an early adopter. And if you want to send some funds to, I don't know, your sister in China or whatever,
sure,
you can do that through the wallet, probably a lot easier than through Western Union or anything. You already have the phone number, and you send them an SMS and tell them, hey, I want to send you 100 BitUSD. To accept those 100 BitUSD, you first need to download this wallet. Please download it. And once you have downloaded it, we essentially verify that that's your phone number. It's the exact same way how Viber, WhatsApp, and Venmo work.
Sure. So whenever this happens, like say I send, because this is an interesting topic for me as far as my wife is a Filipina and we send money to the Philippines a decent bit. And there's a large fee that is attached to it. So essentially
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So go ahead.
How much actually?
I believe it's $14 and then up into like $1,000. And then after that it's a certain percentage on top of it. But I might be wrong on that, but that's what I remember. I do know that it costs us money. I'm certain of that. But for me, the important part is how, like, if she sends it to her family over there, say they have a touchscreen cell phone, which she has told me that a lot of people have now because cheap Chinese knockoffs and stuff like that of American technology. The price point has come down to a point where anybody can have it. So she sends that money to her family. How are they going to use it at that point? Do you know yet, or are you just working on that functionality right now, and there might be some things that you have to consider?
Well, either a local merchant would accept it at par as payment, which at some point many merchants will most likely do, or you do almost like a MoneyGram-like setup where the merchants can give you, meaning your Filipino family, all their the local currency or actual US dollars at a fee for BitUSD, and the local merchants would accept that just like they do MoneyGram right today.
Oh.
Well, then they would probably get their cut, but that would probably still be considerably less than the 5 to 25% that they're getting right now.
Well, this is one of those things that really can reach out to third world nations. You can see through these mini computers, these mini computers, I guess we can call them, that we call cell phones and tablets. So that's really cool. Bytemaster, welcome.
Welcome.
How are you doing?
Oh, a little frantically trying to solve bugs.
I heard that you guys are not busy at all, so I'm glad that you're here. Itnom was just talking about what Bitsapphire is doing, which is really cool. Do you have any updates that you want to give? I mean, if you're busy, if you just want to give an update, let people know what's going on, and I mean, it's up to you how long you're on. We've got two guys who are really talking about some cool stuff here today, too.
Well, I figured I'd stop in considering we launched BitUSD this week.
Yeah.
So it's been a interesting ride, to say the least. It appears that BitUSD is tracking, not perfectly, but it's a relatively illiquid market. So there have been people with their margin calls already. So people have made money. I know I've made money in this market. Be interesting to see if other people have reported similar experiences. We are working through a number of bugs. I expect that within a week we will have most of them resolved.
What are the primary bugs right now that you're working on?
Primary bug is a crash that's leading to instability, just overall instability issues. It's hard to describe. And then there's been discussion of potential updates to the market engine to help track the peg better.
Sure. So can you describe that a little bit, what you're thinking?
Well, the primary proposal has been to use the price feeds instead of the moving average. The moving average has been a problem for us, both on the rise and on the fall. It prevents margin orders from being called in a timely manner. They eventually get called, and it prevents people from shorting when the price is overvalued, like it did on the way up. So that's the primary one, is to use the feeds for both margin calls and to limit shorts to only shorting at the feed. That should increase the liquidity of BitUSD because you won't be competing against people desiring to go short when you're trying to sell your BitUSD. And that should help narrow the margin a little bit. Other proposals have included prioritizing those who want to short based on how much collateral they post. So if you only do this default 2x, you're going to be last in line. If you go up to 3x, you might be first in line. So now we can turn the overflow of demand for shorting into an overflow into the collateral. So obviously it's more expensive to post more collateral. You're putting more at risk in order to short. Therefore, you have a higher priority for shorting, and it reduced the overall exposure of the network to flash crashes in USD. I'd say that's probably the biggest change being proposed. The other change that's being considered is if we have trusted price feeds and the network knows what the price is, it's possible to build a market maker into the network that would buy low and sell high. That one's a little bit more controversial, and it's probably not going to be implemented without significant peer review of the community. So those are the things we're looking at, all of which I think will help enhance the peg. But I think the number one thing we need to focus on is stability.
Does anybody have any questions for Bytemaster while he's here? I know, DeLulo, you have a question. You always have a question, man.
That's right. I normally always have a question. I don't have a question at the moment, though.
I am surprised. Okay. So one of the biggest things that you're working on essentially is the peg and crashing of, I'm assuming, client nodes and delegates both.
Correct. The Windows client has been extremely buggy. My Mac client has not crashed on me a single time this entire period. So it definitely seems to be dependent upon users' environment on their computer. We don't have enough test machines and test environments to test this on. And it appears that the Windows environment is, for some reason, particularly picky about stuff. And so we're trying to track that down.
All right. So Joint Venture wants to ask, actually this is for Brian. If Brian is going to be around to have this question for us, he links to a BitShares talk thread. Why does BitShares can afford to have a cool Facebook page and a cool Twitter account? Do you want to talk about that for a second, Brian? Or
what was the question they were asking?
I'm going to try to say this in a different way. I'm going to try to paraphrase what he's saying. He's interested in why BitShares why can they afford to have a cool Facebook page and a cool Twitter account, while only the official video trying to explain BitShares X is this, and he says it's a video made a year ago by Bytemaster.
Oh, okay, yes. Well, I responded to that on the forum. It's not a matter of affording. It's a matter of manpower. It doesn't cost us anything to have a Twitter and a Facebook following and update that. So that happens, all the time. Our social media presence is pretty good. We're growing our base there. It's just a matter of manpower. Our work at BItshares X, but keep in mind, BItshares X is a product by DAX Unlimited, and primarily my job is to promote BitShares as a brand. Not that I'm not working on BitShares X things, but to be honest, we're working around the clock to get us added to different exchanges, to build the marketing plan that we have, to get the news out about BitShares X, all that kind of stuff. So it's all forthcoming. We're 30 days in, so people need to just kind of realize this is beta software, and we're very, very, very early on. And just to be patient, we're developing this as we go, and there's only one of me. Just like there's only one of Bytemaster, so we can only do so much. So that is something we have in the funnel to do, certainly.
That sounds good. I'll go ahead then, and I'm going to skip the question to me, and I'll answer that after this. But this one's from Namita, and it's to Bytemaster. Could you talk a little bit about the roles which delegates will play as the network grows, and offer any advice for best practices and what delegates can do to be of most profit? I really wanted to ask that question from the first time I heard it, but I think this is a good question for you to answer for a lot of the community, Bytemaster, if possible.
All right, the role of delegates is primarily network stability. That includes making sure that if there are price feeds, they're publishing them, that transactions get included. When there are updates, applying them in a timely manner. So their job is effectively anything and everything that necessary to enhance the network. Ultimately, their job is going to be to fund ongoing maintenance and support for the network. Obviously, they're not earning enough to do that right now, but once our development fund is gone, then it's going to have to be self-sustaining. So that's where delegates are going to come into play.
So, if you don't mind, I would like to piggyback on that and ask a couple questions, because not everybody has heard all the talks that you guys have, which are, to answer a question real quick, BitShares.org/talks is where Bytemaster and the BitShares Invictus crew hold their audio recordings on Beyond Bitcoin server. I'd like to go back to a time when you were talking about something that I've thought about and considered a lot. You said at one point that you would have probably technical people who would run delegates, who would partner with individuals who wanted to almost like PR teams and journalists and people who are wanting to work on different projects and things like that. Could you talk about that at all? Like how you see them funding the infrastructure and so on?
Delegates earn income from the transaction fees. They have to campaign to get votes. So their primary goal is to get the word out, get the vote out, to engage users. So I'd say probably that's their primary role. Engage users, grow the user base, market promote the system. The better they do that, the more users know them. Hey, you're the guy who introduced me to this. Yeah, of course I'll vote you for delegate after I buy some. So yeah, I think that if delegates want to get elected, the best way they can get elected is to help bring people in and to have those people vote for them when they bring them in.
I have an idea. We could, like for BitShares, beyond BitcoinX, there could be two sides. Like on the one side, technical delegates offer their delegate service, and they say, I'm looking for a marketing partner. And on the other side, there are potential marketing partners. And so those two parties could find each other, which normally in daily life is maybe a little bit difficult because you don't have a great marketing guy living next to you most of the time maybe. But we can discuss that later maybe with us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Are there any other questions, or I'm going to get back to trying to get a bug fixed?
Kill those bugs for us, man.
All right. Thank you guys very much, and Brian can field any questions.
Thanks, Dan.
Well, that was a good little stop by. If we could, I'd like to actually, if possible, take into consideration the delegates and all that, and talk to Itnom about. They have delegates up and running. They want to get apps built. Do you want to talk a little bit about that for Bitsapphire, Itnom?
Sure. What shall I start about the forum first and the marketing we're starting, or the apps?
If you could talk a little bit about your run for delegates, what delegates you have, what your plans are for running delegates, and how you're planning on using the funds that you receive, what ratio you want the funds to be at, the transaction fees, what you're going to do as far as the transaction fees, if you're going to burn some, if you're going to give some to the community, how you're going to do all of that stuff.
Yeah, sure. Right now we have just one delegate in the network. It's the 49th delegate on the list, if I'm not mistaken. I think yesterday we had quite the issue with block production due to the 0.49 update. Our Hetzner server didn't take it too good, but everything's fine now, and we haven't a single block for past several hours. Regarding further delegates, we didn't want to put too many delegate voting buttons up on the forum, so at most 2 or 3 buttons, because otherwise it just would look too much like spam. And we think we need to provide more value on the forum before we can actually tell the community, hey, vote more for us. So that's the plan over the next 2 weeks, to put up some design proposals on the forum, get people to vote on the next few designs, see whether we can implement the social login, and to create a database bridge between the SMF forum and a Discourse forum, which we are working on, which will not be implemented, by the way, without first having prior testing and having a bridge built so people can post in whichever forum they want. It gets synchronized to both platforms.
That's cool. So you are only running you only have a few delegate spots open that you're running right now, and that's for BItshares X. Have you considered how the delegates would fund the project? Could you talk to us about that at all?
Well, yes. We believe that the DPoS system is the way to go in the future. Obviously, it will be very, very profitable potentially to be a delegate. We plan to keep the BTSX, sorry, too many test runs, to keep them until the value increases sufficiently, and then give the community the chance to decide on which project to work on first. We believe that it would be best for us to first build an extremely simple wallet, because BitShares Core, meaning Daniel and the team, are working on a more advanced wallet, which, I mean, you can't even call it a wallet. I think Brian on the last call said it very well. This is more than a wallet, what is being developed by BitShares right now, but it's completely...
I hate the term wallet. I told everybody not to use it.
What do you guys recommend calling it?
Okay, well, what we're calling it right now, if you read our BitShares X site, is virtual vault, and that's something Dan came up with. We don't want to call it a bank, and we don't want to call it just an exchange. So what it is, it's BitShares X is like a virtual vault where you can store things of value, and you can also trade there as well. It's kind of a work in progress, but the idea of wallet, if we're going to compare ourselves to the Bitcoin wallet, because we're way more than a wallet.
Yeah.
Yep, totally.
It's kind of like when people call us coins. I've had so many exchanges say, "Oh, we're going to add your coin," and I just get frustrated when I hear that, because or even internally people call them coins, because I'm like, if calling it a coin, then you don't understand the concept behind BitShares.
And then you'll hear those same people go out and start talking about how terrible BitShares is, and how it's the worst idea, how it's never going to work, how their business model is absolutely ridiculous, that Dan doesn't understand economics, and it's like, all the while they're calling them coins, and they're burning all this energy and electricity without reinvesting it into anything. And
I know exactly who you're talking about.
It undermines the first rule of business, which is that you have to create a profit. You have to have a profit. I mean, you don't when it's all pie in the sky and everybody's all excited and it's the .com era, so to speak. But eventually, reality sets in and people say, what are you producing? What is your revenue? What is your profit? And everybody's like, oh no, the value is back down again, and it doesn't concern me, because I'm like, look, in the long term, we have a profitable model, and as we start on-ramping hundreds of thousands and eventually millions of people use this, the revenues are going to continue to climb, and the amount of money going into BitUSD is going to climb, and the value of that is going to climb along with it. And it's all based on one thing, and that's revenues and profitability. That's what I love about our system. It's awesome,
Yep. It cuts out all of the fat out of normal businesses, and it gives it back to the people.
Yeah. I gave this analogy recently, and people probably hate this analogy because they're like, oh, you can't do that. You can't compare Bitcoin to that. But I said to a friend of mine, I was trying to explain it to him in layman's terms. I said, look, Bitcoin is like a token. It's like if you and I went and got a whole bunch of tokens somewhere, like an arcade, and somehow we could guarantee that you couldn't create any more of them, and then there was an easy way to exchange them amongst each other, and everybody trusted that system. But really, in the end, it's just a token, and a token's only worth whatever people agree that it's worth. It's not it's not based on any valuation like a stock is in a company. And if you want to say, you know, what is a stock worth? Well, it's usually worth a multiple of whatever the earnings are. You know, you look at the PE ratio, you look at the earnings of the company, and you can say, yeah, I want to buy Apple stock because I think that Apple's going to have more profit next year than they have this year. And that's the same concept of what we're building on. It's a much better concept than that of a token. And I hate to say Bitcoin's a token, but you can argue that it isn't. I'd like to hear the argument.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's a wonderful it's a wonderful thing that Bitcoin came around. Okay, and
Yes,
I
yes.
I have been in awe that it came around, that it ever even existed. Like it is almost as if by magic, even though we know that it isn't. And I hate it when people call it magic because I think it keeps people from learning about what it really is. But at the same time, it's just like AOL, you know. What was that old movie? You've Got Mail.
You've got mail.
You know what I mean? Like, I watched that not too long ago with my wife, and I was just like, "This is what it used to be." You know, this was like.
Do you remember the Sandra Bullock movie called The Net? You got to watch The Net again. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I haven't watched it for a long time. I remember being like, "Oh wow," back in the day. But I mean, to get back to the point, I guess it's there's nothing wrong with upgrading Bitcoin and realizing that there are flaws to it, and that it was a great idea, and that you can still keep the brand. You know, I mean, the brand is still magnificent. I mean, they've got Bitcoin is what created it, so they could change that. And to me, BitShares essentially says, hey, to all you altcoins, if you make DPoS-based tokens, you can build an entire infrastructure based on the revenue that the delegates make. And the delegates know that the more value they provide the ecosystem, the higher the value of those tokens, just like Itnom's saying. So it becomes an incentive structure where people want to pump value into it because the tokens go up in value as an effect of that. So it's really like, you guys really
and even me as an average, as a shareholder, you also got to think of the shareholders, the people who hold the shares in whatever DAC. You know,
You're cutting out. Just give it a second. We can.
Did you hear that last thing?
No, we didn't hear anything. You started cutting out. You said about you were talking about the DAX stakeholders.
Yeah, I was just saying that the users also have an incentive to participate.
Yeah, which in an interesting way kind of it captures the viral marketing strategy that we've seen this generation come up with, in my opinion. Because now with social media as a platform, literally anybody can propagate information. And based on that information, you form networks of people who disagree with you and agree with you and form opinions based on your opinions and create a whole this whole market of information on top of everything else. And so it's really cool. You're right. And for the first time, we all have that power, you know? It's like, I hear all this doom and gloom stuff, and like I get really frustrated sometimes too about all the corruption, and I'm sure anybody who watches this stuff gets frustrated. But the one thing that gives me personally a glimmer of hope is the fact that any of us can start up a delegate. Anybody can get on Twitter and Facebook, or hopefully someday a better option than Facebook, and propagate their opinions.
Agreed. Absolutely.
Maybe delegates could be used to fund different types of projects. So maybe some delegates focus on mesh networking or something like that, a more distributed internet.
Well, and that comes down to, what about something like .p2p? .p2p is a DAC. It's going to be a profitable DAC. It's going to take some of those profits. There's nothing keeping them from saying, hey, it's just a logical conclusion that we want a mesh network. So why don't we fund it? Why don't we get our delegates to help fund it?
Yeah, and integrate with this a couple of other DACs. So running several delegates on different networks before focusing on a certain type of development.
Yeah, like the charity DAX, for instance. Go ahead, Itnom. I keep seeing your lips come on, and I'm so loud.
My lips. I actually, we're kind of betting our company here that the DPOS, the delegates, their main income won't actually be from the DAC itself, rather from the oracles and potentially open transaction service, which would run on top of them and below them. So we actually think that those two parts will become two additional protocols, after which we will probably see our AOL moment.
Really? Can you explain that a little bit more for the layman?
Most Oracle setups can do similar things like Ethereum portrays to be doing in the future. I think Ripple already published an Oracle of theirs. There's at least one other Oracle software which is already out there. But their main issue is that you still need trusted servers. And DPOS essentially solves that, because the delegates themselves can become the trusted servers, which besides doing the transactions and the block production, they can also do the Oracle verification and processing of contracts and publish them, and potentially federate the oracles between one another. So you would only send your Oracle contracts as a user to the top 100 delegates, rather than to like the entire network, like Ethereum would probably do it in the future. And furthermore, if you look at open transactions, that's probably going to be one of the main ways how we go around the transactions per second bottleneck. But I guess the BitShares team is way more competent to talk about this. We're just looking at this from a user experience standpoint, and from a how shall we build software on top of this stack. We really believe this is going to be the underlying stack in the future.
And so you're talking about transaction processing bottleneck. This is kind of a first to me. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is? Do you know?
Open transaction. This is a different concept to Ripple. It's the idea is that you have trusted servers around the globe, and the server can only verify that deals are being made. So it stamps deals. It doesn't do anything with them. And the trusted, because the system is open source and you know how it works, that way you can trust the transactions being placed. And what he was talking about was is merging delegates with the open transaction service. So linking more services together. And the thing was, how can you find the trusted server? And he was saying, well, because the delegates have the system of finding trusted nodes, trusted servers, you can now also put on top different services, because you have this system of finding trusted servers now.
Perfect, Joey. You explain it better than me.
Yeah, Joey's a humble badass, is what I like to call him. When he opens his mouth, he says something profound. Yeah, thanks, man. Open transactions, then, is where the bottleneck lies.
Well, not necessarily, but it's just different protocols. We think that the DACs are just the beginning, and there will come up different protocols. One is processing, which would be oracles, and potentially the DAC itself, as Daniel said, with the Turing completeness getting built into the DAC, I hope, in the future, or in this DAC or another one. And on top of that, the high-speed transactions with open transaction. And none of them would actually compete with one another. They would all be built on top of the DPOS system, which is really the genius part, we think, and which is why we're betting the entire team and company and future of our team on DPOS.
So it's kind of like how the internet protocols go together to make a functioning internet.
Very much. Actually,
it's more bridging between the different networks. So you don't need one single network. You can have you can use multiple different systems from these delegates. If I got you correctly.
Yes, absolutely. People keep saying that Bitcoin is TCP/IP. I don't think Bitcoin is TCP/IP. It was just the invention of networking. I think BPOS is going to be the equivalent of TCP/IP, and all these other protocols will be the equivalent of HTTP later on the web itself. So,
wow, I like that. I like that analogy right there. I might borrow that.
actually, one of our mentors is one of the creators of HTML, and he came up with this. So.
Wow. That's pretty, you never know what people are going to say here. That's really cool, man. Really cool.
I've got to say, I like that people are thinking about other possibilities as well, instead of Bitcoin starting to turn into some kind of cult. I don't think that's healthy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see elements of that in me, even with regard to BitShares to a degree. I mean, I have to remember that I have to open myself up to the possibilities of other systems that are going to be important as well. It's a learning experience for all of us, I guess, right? But
And we haven't seen nothing yet.
yeah, haven't even seen the real explosion that's going to be exponentially larger than Bitcoins, like thousands of Bitcoins. I wanted
things you can do now that were never possible before. And like I said, if it was possible to do mesh networking or maybe satellite system, GPS for the DPoS information, that you could set up complete logistics and administration in areas that are remote or struck by catastrophe or something, and you have it instantly in place.
hey, I hate to interrupt, but Gingerbread, I see your lips coming on. Are you talking, or are you just accidentally clicking on it?
No, I'm actually clicking another one. It's still lighting up my lips there. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure, because when I see that, I want to try to get you, if you're trying to say something, because some people aren't really loud and aren't just willing to belt it out. Some people just kind of yeah. So I just want to make sure.
I'll jump. Want to throw in something there.
Okay. Good. You guys were talking about, Joey said something about using it for satellite systems and all kinds of things that I'd never even considered depots for that.
Now, I was thinking about you could use stuff like this to create something that wasn't there before, wasn't possible before, or not economically viable.
Oh.
So sorry, I forgot the name. The idea of making a node, trusted delegates, and then combining several services and making each other pay for the service. So collectively making a building on top of each other. It could also possibly create openings that weren't there before.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
The analogy I learned in school to talk about this is, what if you could use freight transport also for public transport? That way you could make public transport free, even in a capitalist system.
You mean,
stuff like that. So maybe you could develop networks, could develop administration software system riding on top of the flow of communication between people and traffic of funds and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, isn't it? There are a couple guys in here who are thinking about running projects. I know, Brent, you are running canonizer.com. You're one of the people who's behind that. And Gingerbread, I know you've got some stuff that you're really interested in. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what you're interested in? Because Brent has been well known. He comes here all the time. But I want to hopefully get you guys the opportunity to talk a little bit about what your dream is, what you're trying to do, and let's see what the hive mind here can help you out with.
Definitely. So I guess what kind of to looking at decentralized and distributions is through a start working on for the past few years
Oh,
called.
hey, Ginger, I hate to interrupt you. Are you pushing down on your button all the way?
Maybe not. Is that?
Yeah, hold it and try to talk real quick. I just want to make sure before, because we can edit this out. It's not a big deal.
Sure. It's the damn Mac. Say that.
It's a Mac. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Are you running any other programs in the background that are that would take a lot of your memory or anything?
With BitShares programs?
I don't know. Should that be does anybody know if that would be a problem for why he keeps cutting out?
I'm not sure if it would be a problem, but I can definitely tell you he's not coming through clearly.
Okay.
He
Yeah,
is using
thanks.
push to talk. In that case, maybe you could put a different button for push to talk if the button is faulty.
That solved the problem sometimes. Switch to a different button under the preferences.
Good call.
Let me try that real quick and see if I can switch it out.
Yeah, because I want everybody here to hear this, because it's really, really like Gingerbreadman is pretty into some really cool stuff. And I think the cool thing about this little crew that forms here is that we all are interested in decentralization of power and systems that are going to be self-sustaining. So whereas you or I might sit down and talk with some person about this stuff and they kind of glaze over, here is like one of the few like little bastions that we have where people actually understand what we're talking about. So I feel blessed to like have all these people who are coming in here and talking about all these cool things.
All right. Better now?
That will be one of the things we need to solve, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'll start over. One of the that really brought me into cryptocurrencies is this decentralization. And I've startup for the past couple of years called FutureTech, and it's a distributed food production platform. So the whole concept behind
distributed food production.
Correct. Distributed food production. So you think of basically in the future, you'll have a system in your own living space that autonomously produce all your fresh produce needs, and all these systems would be connected to each other and learn from each other. So for example, if you're growing lettuce, and you can grow lettuce in 30 days flat, and I can't harvest lettuce for 45 days.
So 45 days for you to grow your lettuce, 30 days for me to grow my lettuce.
You got it, exactly. The system can log into yours, read all your and kind of see what your inputs are, and then write that to improve upon my own efficiency. So you scale that out, and what we're looking at is creating neural network for food production that all drives towards the maximum efficiency physics allows. Actually, at some point, we see this as being the potential for food production becoming completely autonomous, human inputs whatsoever.
So autonomous, no human inputs whatsoever. A neural network that learns from the most efficient nodes in the network and replicates.
Exactly. And so one of the issues that I had run into about a year and a half ago was how do you monetize and how do you automate that monetization? That's kind of about how I stuck Bitcoin and thought, wow, this is really like you could really automate this entire and incentivize the guys that are work the most knowledge and experience, and creating an autonomous network that can react. So
it can react how?
So say for example, you've special nutrient solution for the past 2 got it dialed in. It increases your by 25%.
So you put in a certain solution at a certain amount, it increases your results by a certain percent, you say.
Exactly. And it's kind of like a recipe. Like, it's kind of like it's intellectual property as much as it's secrets. So what advise people to share their trade secrets and food more efficiently?
So what would incentivize Monsanto to tell everybody what they're doing?
It's
Sorry,
you know,
no.
it's the same concept that Bitcoin on. It's not necessarily integrating the system that's in place now. Reinventing food production should be. If you think about the farming is not natural, and once you have that says, you know what, plants don't grow in these beautiful straight lines and wide open. It's not natural. So if it's not natural, why aren't we doing it as efficiently as possible?
Yeah. So, and this is really cool because now, did you say
talking about distributed might be also advisable to make different biomes, self-sustaining biomes, integrated with more stuff than just lettuce.
What is a biome?
multiple different? Go ahead. I'm sorry. It's a biome's basically an ecosystem that almost self-sustains on itself. Like certain plants might use different nutrients, right?
Yeah, one of the ideas I also have is maybe making, because we have a lot of shit now in Europe with Ukraine and stuff, because everything is interconnected. But maybe having everything more self-sustaining might solve a lot of the mess.
Something that I always like to bring up, because I'm very political. I find that it's hard not to be anymore, to a degree. When you have sanctions on countries, the local production of food could save lives, right? I mean, the most efficient local production of food also enables you to know the person who's growing your food, to know transparently what is being put into the growing of your food, and you know that it's safe. So there's a lot of awesome connotations to me, or consequences that arise because of what you're talking about, Gingerbread. And that's one reason why, like, I really wanted to ask you about it. I might someday ask you to go over it once again, because you're still cutting out, but we're going to put it up probably anyway. But does anybody have anything they would like to talk about with Gingerbread about that? As far as ways of sustaining it, like as far as how you guys see it being possible to fund it?
Yeah. Can this be applied to actual gingerbread?
All the ingredients.
He's a very expensive man, though. If you're gonna be looking at that, you might need sex coin.
So Gingerbread, how far is it the project? Is it like did you actually set up something, or is it just a concept yet?
Yeah, so for the most part, we've gone through a couple of iterations, learned a lot. Started the company in 2012, and a bit of funding through some local grants, some venture capital investors that have pre-seed funding into this venture. We were approaching it from a completely different angle than where we're at now, and part of it is due directly to interacting and with the idea of how we might be able to integrate chain technologies into this. So we're back to kind of and building out our team and figuring out how that might be possible.
So you're trying to get more people on board with you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I'll say this: were you here earlier before we started this whole shindig? I mean, as far as, were you here to hear about some of the plans that we're coming up with, as far as the BeyondBitcoinx system?
I think I might have. I got here right at 3 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, you were AFK for it. I'll go ahead and I'll say it here because there are other people who haven't been here, and there's no reason why I can't put it on here. What I'm thinking about doing is actually having it so anybody who wants to, who's coming on here to talk about these issues, who's coming on here to use this as a platform, and essentially when you're here, you're enabling other people to come on and get information from you openly and transparently. And I'd like to help try to reward that in some way. Bytemaster has talked about slates. So I'm thinking about actually having it so we'll have a link right here in the mumble, instead of having a Kanye coin, which needs changed out because it frustrates me every time I see him on a coin. But if we could have something like a link there for people to actually vote for your delegate, I'd like to help the people who want to talk about these things get some of the funding that they can get. And there, in the future, there will be opportunities to have delegates for multiple DACs that you think might integrate well with you or provide a service that you would like to, be part of the network, so on and so forth. So just something to consider.
That's awesome.
Jabba's making a website. He's a bad dude. As always, all of you guys don't think you're bad dudes, and you won't say that you're bad dudes, but pretty much all of you are. And he's coming up with a website where you actually can run your delegate and you can post information about what you're supporting and what your delegates are supporting. Post updates. You can have people who essentially work for you, who you can pay with some of your delegate fees, and they can post stuff underneath your delegate, or literally anybody can post something underneath your delegate, and then we'll make it so users earn points for propagating it through social media channels. That's actually something I wanted to talk to Itnom about at some point in time. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity for incentivizing things like that, and people who essentially propagate the content virally, they're only going to usually grab onto the content that they believe in, because they don't want people to not trust them over time because they won't be really that valuable. But whenever you propagate content, you get points. It's an incentive to kind of get that information out there. Whether it's good information or bad information, people will be able to, it'll be a transparent system where people can, you'll have people who are on detective duty too for delegates to make sure they're doing the things that they're supposed to do. We're trying to make it a system where you guys can actually incentivize low barrier to entry journalism for your project and kind of bootstrap the community and bring people in for projects because what you guys want, Ginger, you want somebody who's passionate about the stuff that you're passionate about to work with you. Brent,
yeah, definitely.
Brent, it's the same thing. I guarantee you, all of you guys are passionate about what you're doing, or else you wouldn't be, like you said, you wouldn't be betting the farm on it. You're working for free essentially right now because you believe that what's going to come of it is going to be of great value to you and humanity, and it's going to earn you a profit. So there's a lot of opportunity here for us to, as a community, really capitalize on these economic incentives. So I urge you guys to contact me and keep in contact with me about that. We can come up with some solutions to make it easy across the board, but does that sound good?
Totally.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. They're doing a really cool thing with the Beyond Big project there.
So, Fuzz, what were your thoughts on what we talked about the other night? Are you is that not interesting to you, or
what are you talking about? The spreadsheet?
Yeah, or basically a database or whatever of actually creating it of all the. I know, like a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this, and Nulula was talking about the different qualifications for what actually makes a trustworthy delegate. And there are certain things like post numbers and all that kind of stuff. But if we had like a database, centralized database, the spreadsheet's just because it's easy to use, then you can have a feed, a JSON feed, and other sites can use it, and it helps the whole like delegate voting thing quite a bit, because everyone would have these different criteria to select their own slate, to create their slate based upon, you know, whatever their weightings are. But
here's my take on it. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it as a database. So say Gingerbread wants to start his delegate, and he wants to put his delegate on the Beyond Bitcoin site. He can enter all that information in, and it'll actually go into a database from which you can draw all that information. Now, this is the question. I actually don't mind the idea of doing it. It would be a newbie doing it, though, and learning it. So that's the question is, does a pro need to do it? Or is a pro going to eventually need to do it? Yeah, thanks for coming, Brent. Or is it going to be okay if I do it and there's, you know, are there going to be security issues with it? Or is there going to be anything outside of the realm that I'm not going to take into consideration? Because Xerox made a good point to me one time, and Xerox's not here today, but I keep going back to it because I was doing like 3 or 4 different things and learning all of them at once. And he kind of said to me at one point in time, yeah, I've come to the conclusion that I just let other people do that stuff. So I don't know. I've learned from that. I don't know where I stand on it as far as like if there'd be somebody who'd be better fit for it.
Probably no. I mean, it just seemed like a good fit for you to do. I don't know. I mean, there's always.
I actually would love to do it.
It doesn't matter finding people to do stuff, you know. And it's not sitting around like, you know, to take a pro. If it's not a pro, all you do is fill out a spreadsheet by basically reading posts in the forum, and then from there you can always put that inside a database if you want to.
Yeah, but it really comes down to a question of efficiency. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I would run a database, and I'd let the delegates come to us to do it and put it in there. I've seen a guy named Bitmeat, I think, has something similar. I don't know. We can contact him too. I would like to talk about this actually a lot. Because what do you guys think? I mean, there are people here.
I mean, the problem is if you expect people to come to you, well, one, you have to expect them to come to you, and that actually has to come true and give you content. I mean, that's a whole nother problem, which I don't know if you've actually see if it's gonna work out or not. So you know, it's a kind of chicken egg problem. And then the other problem is if you have them do it, then you really can't trust what they say without verifying it yourself anyway. So it's like it's not really an authoritative source. It's just like you know, like the Craigslist equivalent of and that's the problem if you rely on user content, and then you don't verify it. You know, so the other option is just to do it yourself, and it's the same amount of work, but then you have an authoritative list, and from that list, you know, someone can write like a small piece of software that would generate slates, like according to, you know, whatever. Anyway, that's my thought.
I'm glad you brought it up, because I wouldn't bring up the project out of just. I think it's humble, but I think it's probably more stupidity, idealistic stupidity. I have a bunch of really smart people here. Does anybody else? What does anybody think? Like, is that the best way moving forward with a project like that? Or is there something that you think would be a better way of accomplishing it? Does anybody have opinions?
I wasn't there for the discussion, so you were talking about a list. I mean, probably a list of delegates or something like that.
Yeah, it would essentially be, he approached me and he said, we could definitely use somebody putting together a delegate spreadsheet with all the delegates, their burn rates, their transaction acceptance rates, if they're being paid 50%, you know, if they're being paid 100%, if they're funding a project, you know, different, essentially, rows in the table and a spreadsheet. and you could have multiple worksheets for different DACs, I would assume, and then you would fill those all out authoritatively. You see, that's, I guess the question comes down to, I mean, how is anybody going to verify this anyway? And if they can verify it, there has to be a data feed or some way of them accessing the data.
If we fill in the information ourselves, we know the source where we got the information, so you can just plug it in there.
So you're saying
the thing is with this Google spreadsheets, I mean, that can be that is, I mean, it's a database of sorts. I mean, it's structured in the same way a database of rows and records. But that can also be made into a JSON API, which the whole thing can just be called and pulled in. So like other services could use your feed, you know, and I don't know how you'd want to arrange that or whatever. But I mean, that's the spreadsheet thing is just a minor, just like a way to get it going. I mean, the other option is you find a developer to like code the stuff up. And, you know, there you go. That's another, you know, problem you have to overcome because, you know, developers are usually doing something.
I agree with Gamey that what he said is the best way to get things going now. And maybe if you want to upgrade it to a more complex system of voting and more people dropping in. But expecting every delegate to come to our site that's not well known now to pull in their own information. I think they will come eventually. If you put up a list and people come to it, then I think the delegates will come and knock in.
Yeah, so
what Gamey said, we make a list. If you put in the sources where you got your information, then that makes it trustworthy. People can cross-check your facts.
I actually like that solution. Like, you see, that's the thing. I don't mind doing it. The question is, Gamey, do you see any potential issues with that? I mean, does Itnom, you're a web guy. You know, Jabba, you're a web guy. We've got a lot of people who I know for certain are interested in stuff like this.
Usually it's pretty easy to find some sort of web control, whatever technology you're using that will pull in JSON feeds and display them, and then someone will have to write a thing to convert that into like a slate, you know, where you could do, and that would be some work, but you would have the feed, at least you can display a feed, you know, and sort it by post or sort it by their sign up date or whatever, and I don't know, you know what I mean, but it's a step to have the data and be able to display it. I don't know, you know.
No, I think that this is yeah, please, man, Gamey, you come up with some really good thoughts to like that we have to like dig into. So like, don't worry about being like, oh, I don't know, you know, like, and Jabba, how would that work with the website? I mean, is there anything that any input you have? Jabba's drinking coffee and smoking a joint on his back porch. Backy, are you there?
So let me chime in here real quick. Is what you guys trying to create a directory of delegates?
That's essentially what he wants to do, and because we're trying to solve what Gamey says is the chicken egg problem, and I believe it 100%. I think that's the most apt way of describing it, and that is, you have to be able to bring users to the website for delegates to want to come to it. You have, but at the same time, or delegates and journalists, but at the same time, you have to bring delegates and journalists to the website to make users want to come. So once you have those two things together, it really can help to kickstart the entire system, right? And I think where Gamey's going with it, and tell me if I'm wrong, Gamey, but I think that he's been trying to set me up for success with this by saying, hey, create a directory of delegates. You're a trusted person in the community. People trust you. They know that you're not a dick, that you're not going to screw anybody over. So that's a place where you can add value to the site. people will go and look at the site. They'll go to it as the repository for delegate information, and then they'll want to earn points while they're there because they'll see delegates that like I'll see Gingerbread's delegates are working on funding what the project that you're doing.
I mean,
And
my basic idea is just as a way to bootstrap it. I mean, you can always export that spreadsheet into a database. That would not be a hard thing to do. But this would bootstrap your website with actually so it would actually start out having a list as opposed to having, you know, the first 15% of the guys that show up and they slowly trickle in. I mean, you'd have a list of all the delegates from the start. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. That was my thought.
Okay, so talk me through this. Like, if I wanted to set up a delegate, would that be through the Beyond Bitcoin form?
yeah, you would go to what we would like to have, and Jab is still working on stuff and it's not finalized. But what we would like to have is a way of using your BitShares identity, one of your BitShares account, to log in to the site to verify that you are who you say you are. And when you go onto the website in that way, you can go ahead and you can say, okay, I'm going to run this delegate. Like, you would essentially create a delegate account and say, okay, this is a delegate account that I'm creating. Then it'll take you to a web page, to a form where you'll fill out, my delegate is going to be accepting 100% of the pay. A percentage of the pay is going to go to this project. This is my uptime. This is my downtime. This is my blocks mix. Just different statistics on your delegate. So people can look at your delegate and say, okay, it's providing a lot of value to the network.
Okay, yeah.
And then they can, right there, they can click on it, on your delegate, on like an icon maybe somewhere, and open up their BitShares wallet and vote for you from the site. And then on top of that, you might be able to, you might be able to have like a DAC that says, okay, we're going to have our top 5 delegates that we endorse. It's our slate of delegates. Or Beyond Bitcoin, we might have, we might on the homepage have something you can click on and say, it's going to have 25 different delegates across 17 different DAGs that we're supporting, and we might get 5% for to continue, of their fees to help pay for our upkeep and all the stuff that we're doing, and then the rest of it goes to them, but they get the value of having their DAC endorsed by the site that actually, is trying to run this stuff. So it's kind of, do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of, go ahead.
As I say, you guys kind of bring awareness of what delegates to support and for.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily just that. Say you as a delegate, you have the delegate. You might have a guy on your team who's running the delegate and watching it. That's one of his jobs. And you have another guy who does a lot of work with you, but he's got a hobby. He likes to write stuff, and he wants to go post underneath your, blog stuff that he's got his own blog. So he links to his blog articles that he's doing on projects that you guys are working on. And then users like I would go on your site and I'd say, look at all the cool stuff that they're doing. I'm glad that they're voted in and they're being paid for all this stuff. And I can just click on and vote up your blog posts. I can and get paid for it in BTX points or BBX points or whatever you want to call them at this juncture, and propagate your content out on Twitter, Facebook, and all that stuff. So your blog guy is loving it. If you've got people who are creating videos for you, they're getting people from the site who are perpetuating or propagating it content onto social media, and they're getting paid for it. And they can use those points eventually to, we could take the funds that the delegates give us, and we could actually have it so you can use your points to redeem them for BTSX, BTSX, or shares in a DAC that you believe in, or different things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely. This is the time to start working on this. I mean, we're so early in the development of this form, this ecosystem. I think you get on.
Yeah, my question is really, so I guess, Gamey, it makes sense then just to make the first list. I'll go ahead and I will do it. I'll do it.
You don't have to commit to it publicly. All you got to do is start working on it, and then when you get it done, you can just then announce it. You know what I mean? So if for some reason it doesn't, you're having doubts or don't want to finish, then fine. Just you can do it like that, and then when it's done, announce it. And I'll look into figure out how to make a JSON feed off of it, and we'll figure out some website to put it on till jabbajabba has a place to put it in or something. And I think the problem is that there's some security issues with BItshares X, because just the level of voting, because people don't know who to vote for, and having to go through forum posts just to try to figure it all out. That's a huge pain in the butt, and it's keeping people from voting. So by doing this is actually going to make I think it'll make people more interested in the whole delegate system, but it will also improve network security by some measurable amount. I mean, it may not be that much, but and then once you get it done with the data, then just keeping it up to date won't be that much work. And it really won't be much more than probably an hour a week once you do the initial data entry.
Maybe we could have something where people can I'll actually do this. I think I'll create a website where people can enter a form. I can very easily just create a form where people can enter their information, for after. I'll do it by hand this first time, but after that, whenever we have delegates really wanting to do this stuff, they could just send an email to me with their forum post. And you'd almost have delegate announcements, almost like you'd have new altcoin announcements. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's first thing I think just do the Google spreadsheet thing, and then when people want to make whatever, do the form email thing, and then keep it simple. I mean, a lot of this stuff can be automated, but automating stuff can be very time intensive from a developer standpoint, and I don't know.
Yeah, there's a few things I really want to do. I want to get on and actually start up my own delegate, which shouldn't be that hard. I just need to find a good service that I can go through that's relatively cheap and allows for easy scaling, so to keep maximum uptime. And then I want to make have a little hangout for people who don't know how to run delegates. So that's another thing I would like to do. So those, I guess, would be two really good ones to work on. I might actually just start having people all show up at one time during the week. And we can just have like Itnom was in here, Gingerbread is in here, Brent was in here.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, man. But you know what I mean. We can get people coming in here, because I've been trying to start having a couple an extra day a week, but it's really the hardest part is going out and getting people to it takes a lot of time, because you're writing so many emails to people who know people to see if they can get a hold of somebody. So you know what I mean? So it's that's probably the most time consuming part of my day doing this stuff. And a lot of the time it doesn't end up panning out. Or most often I get people being like, BitShares? F that. Because I think intuitively they understand that the BitShares, the protocol itself, kind of flies in the face of some of it makes it makes some of the benefits of depots like really evident. I mean, BitShares itself
Man,
makes.
do you see we're down to 50 million on coin market?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too, but it's just like, oh man, that's just like how many more bitcoins I had a few days ago.
Well, you think about, you're right, but you think about it, and it's like a couple days ago, Ripple did that, and when they did that, if you noticed, that was almost the exact same time that the price started going down. So it was really interesting timing. I mean, that's just like Joey and I say to each other, humans are behavior, are pattern seekers. So, I mean, it might be a pattern that makes that high correlation or no causation, but it's definitely interesting that we started going down so heavily right after Ripple did that and retook the third place. It was ironic because it was actually Ginger he was the guy who was on Twitter saying we're at number 3 just past Ripple, and then boosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you saw that. Like, it's really funny because I was like, hell yeah, man, hell yeah.
I don't know if there's any like conspiracy back end to that or anything like that.
Nah, probably not.
I really do think it's just coincidental.
Yeah, I always look for conspiracies.
Plus, to be honest, the Ripple system with the contacts they have and the banks that are on their system and gold traders trading on their network, they're further along than we are. So it actually doesn't make sense that we would be higher up on the ladder than they are.
How I don't even understand. How did they triple their money supply, and then it just like maintained the same value per unit or whatever? Like that I don't get how that massive dilution wasn't like reflected. Like,
Yeah. Plus,
I don't understand the whole thing. What happened?
Plus, the guy from the Jed McCaleb who still holds a large chunk of it and threatening to sell it, but it still holds up its value. So, pretty confused how that works as well. But yeah, most of it is not in the hands of the users anyway. So maybe they can control the price more easily.
The way it happened with Ripple was that the CoinMarketCap deliberately excluded the coins held by Ripple Labs, I think, or the main company. And then they reached a deal where the coins of the guy who is also founder of Kraken, I think, who was also founder of Ripple and now Stellar, wanted to dump all of his coins, which is a considerable amount of coins. They reached a deal that he would do that gradually, and I think he did start doing that. And then at once, those coins weren't counted into the exclusion coins anymore, meaning that all of a sudden the value was still the same. He just moved his Ripple coins from one account to another, at which point CoinMarketCap didn't look at them anymore as Ripple Labs coins, meaning that there were all of a sudden a lot more coins available, which CoinMarketCap just multiplied with the price. I don't know if that was clear enough.
No, you made sense. I think I got what happened.
It is really interesting how it worked, though.
The market cap doesn't really make sense for tokens anyway.
No, that was what I tried to say. But the worth of the network is different from what this website statistics mentioned. What I was saying is, if it's more integrated in daily life, then it's worth something in my eyes. So I think people should look at that instead of the statistics on some day trading.
Yeah, we really need to get BitUS dollars more stable. Bitsapphire, we really want to be like the first company to accept BitUS dollars. But right now, it's kind of dangerous to do so because you really don't know what the pack will hold.
Yeah. But the thing is, if it comes off the ground, I think it has a lot more potential than the Ripple system. Because what I don't like about Ripple is how you can't actually make sure that the deal is made. So you kind of have a lot of fake value in the system, and the user have to make trades with themselves to cancel out the loss in with a failed deal. So if nobody checks it, there's a lot of possible corruption right there.
Yes, but you should not undervalue the value of being able to issue IOUs at almost no cost. So
now, I find the technology very impressive, and what it can do is very impressive, but I thought that was a dangerous proposition.
Yeah, I totally agree. The gateway system, I don't really think that makes too much sense. But at some point, somebody is going to come up with a DPoS-based DAG, which issues probably producer-issued credit or self-certified credit, most likely floating with some sort of credit rating within the system. So you would trade different IOUs based on the credit rating of each other, rather than like it is in Ripple, but based on trust relationships.
Oh, kind of using, would it use the user accounts, or?
Most likely.
Kind of like a BitShares Me type of thing?
Yeah, possibly. Though I still don't really know whether BitShares Me is going to have bit assets too, or just user issued assets. If somebody might explain this to me, I'd be very happy.
I think it's mostly like the tokens now, like all the altcoins. It's chips in a casino. So you put your chips on there, and whatever the people value at. It's not something that's supposed to have integral value or something, or integral functionality. So you have to connect it to another system. So maybe tokens on your charity collaboration point or something like that.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just wondering whether bit assets, collateralized bit assets, would also exist on BitShares Me.
My understanding is that they don't. My understanding is that BitShares Me is more like kind of like a counterparty type of DAG.
Yeah, but counterparty uses Bitcoin, which has some sort of value. So it bootstraps out of existing value, while BitShares Me needs to create value out of the counterparty system, which I don't really think works the other way around.
That's interesting.
You mean you don't think the network will hold value enough for people to want to work with it?
I don't know, I might be very wrong here, but I was just thinking about this from a Bitsapphire perspective. We want to issue our own vouchers, where people then, from now on, we would just accept vouchers which are which would be user-issued assets on BItshares X, and then people could trade the vouchers, and it would be a lot easier for us to control for how many people we need to hire, and when the funds are going to come in, etc. But that makes no sense if there's no value in the network already, or if at the very least there's BitUSD with which we can trade our vouchers with.
Well, another way you could solve it, if there were other delegates also interested in issuing their own vouchers, you could collaborate on that BitShares Me network. You don't need that many people to keep the network up and running.
Yeah, but you need to trade your vouchers with something, right?
Yeah, but because the delegates are running it, and Bytemaster was also talking about cross-chain trading stuff, or maybe open transactions could solve that.
Yeah, that's all possible. Though we wanted to do that within a month, so we probably will have to issue self-issued assets on BItshares X, which is terribly expensive, like $5,000 if I'm not mistaken right now.
Yeah, well, do it now while the price is down.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
Have you talked to Dan about this, and have they told you what they're thinking?
Yes. So in the forum, actually, publicly, it looks like they think that that's essentially the added value you're paying for being able to trade directly with BitUSD on the same network, which makes sense. But I think the real added value of BitShares X would be for startups to issue things like vouchers, IOUs, and stock on there. That might be like a beachhead market and added value to BitShares X itself. And that would essentially cut the startups out. It would just become like a corporate thing, and the corporates would never move to BitShares X because they're already stable in wherever they are, unless somebody like, I don't know, what's the guy's name, who was thinking about putting his stock on BitShares X.
Overstock guy.
Patrick Byrne.
Yeah, but he's the very, very exception. The real market would be the startups, I think, who would gladly accept even this discounted BitUSD rather than not getting any money at all.
Yeah, Overstock had some bad experiences where people tried to destroy his company with his by short selling his stocks. So he's desperately looking for an alternative.
It was naked short selling, wasn't it?
Yeah, sure, naked short selling. Yeah, and he had a really tough time. People were saying he was crazy or something, and the guys, very well-known guys who were calling him crazy, were the guys doing it to him.
Of course.
What is short selling? Can somebody explain the market mechanics behind it?
You sell, you short sell, you sell the stock to a company, but you don't have the stocks, and you expect them to drop because you're selling them, and because you can't deliver. So you're destroying some of the stock, and you can buy it cheap. So naked in the sense is that you don't even have the stock in the first place to sell.
You didn't even borrow it from somebody who has the stock.
So you just destroy the market and then buy the stock you're supposed to sell, or you're supposedly sold for at a higher price before you crash the market, and you just buy them up cheap and sell them after the fact.
Yep.
Wow, that is shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
We were talking a little bit earlier about the why the high fee on BitShares X, and I think a lot of it is just so that there are not scams floating about. Because if you go to like the next asset exchange, it is like $30. It's probably a lot of probably it's like $20 now, but to register a user issued asset, and because of that, it's just full of like garbage. And so by them raising the price up, to only serious people, it becomes a more, actual exclusive thing, and they don't have to worry about all these low-rent scammers inhabiting the exchange.
Yeah, it takes away the spam.
Yeah, though I generally disagree with high barriers to entry as anti-spam mechanisms. It's much better to have the zero entry barrier with a high exit barrier, meaning it's much better for somebody to tell somebody that over time you need to, I don't know, get together a lot of collateral, which you then have a lot of opportunity cost to lose if you're a scammer, rather than pay a lot upfront. Because if there's a lot of entry barriers like there's right now with BitShares X, the growth trajectory is also severely slow.
Yeah. Now, I was not saying that it's the best way to go. I just say it's one of the solutions they came up with. It's actually the origin of Bitcoin.
That's actually a really good point.
The barrier to entry thing to make spam too expensive. But the other way, then I don't know. Then we need maybe a better system of tracking reputation or something like that, or reliability.
Well, all that can be done using the vault and your account. I mean, that's really one of the big things that is interesting to me, is if we're going to be able to actually use these accounts to go out onto the web, and our trust rating follows us. So if we're a known scammer, people are going to know we're a known scammer when we go. It's like walking out around downtown with a sign on that says, "I'm going to steal. I have stolen people's wallets."
Well, I don't know if I agree with you there. I've seen a lot of stake people in the Bitcoin community say some really stupid things and be proven completely wrong, but to still have a high reputation. So I don't know if that really works.
Yeah, I'm very much against reputation grabs. You can gain them always. It's much better to have kind of a mad scenario, meaning mutually assured destruction. So I'm very much in favor of gradually increasing collateral associated with each identity. So the longer you're on the system, the more funds are in your collateral due to you trading or issuing IOUs, the more it would cost you to scam people. But it wouldn't actually cost you anything to get into the system.
Well, at some point in time, Itnom, you've hit on a couple topics I'm interested to hear your opinion on. Unfortunately, for me, I can't hang out with you guys anymore today. I've got to get off here, but I will be on here. I know Joey's on here a lot. If you guys ever want to just stop by and say hi or talk about some things, we can all collaborate on multiple different things. So let me know where you guys stand. If you guys ever need anything from me, let me know. And feel free to set up your own events with your own community of friends. Let people know this is here for free for everybody. That's my big thing. And this is actually one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about at some point in time, Itnom, is low barrier to entry for journalists who want to cover this. Because to me, bloggers can be journalists too. You don't need a press pass from a central authority necessarily. And if you teach people, if you want to teach people, it's
That's one of the things this I think still needs to be solved. So it's not it's a different topic to what Itnom. I guess that's how he is trying to solve. They're trying to run a business. So what we're trying to do is something skirting that, so more public opinion. So it's a bit different type of problem. The thing with business is you can have some real monetary value. So you have something tangible, something you can measure and work with. While with journalism and truth and stuff like that and reputation becomes a whole different ballgame.
Man, that's why I love this. I could sit here with you guys for 20 hours. All right, but it was nice talking to you guys. We'll see you guys next Friday. Sound good?
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
See you, thanks for setting this up.
Oh man, I thank you guys. This is a blast for me. Bye.
Yeah, I'm getting out too. It's pretty late here in Europe.
I know.